This episode brought to you by Cafe Imports, Minneapolis-based importers of fine specialty green coffees. Independently owned and operated since 1993, Cafe Imports has been dedicated to decreasing its impact on the earth through renewable energy, carbon neutrality, and by supporting conservational efforts in places where quality coffee is grown and also where quality coffee is consumed. Where does your coffee come from?
And by the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation. As a nonprofit, we rely on support from listeners like you. If you like what you hear, please consider a donation. To learn more and make a gift, visit us at www.gosuperior.org.
Welcome to the Lake Superior Podcast. I'm Walt Lindala.
And I'm Frida Waara. We are made stronger by story, and there's no better source than the continent's largest body of fresh water, Lake Superior.
So join us as we highlight the 5 national parks that ring this greatest of the Great Lakes, meet the people, tour the places, and learn about the projects that make these parks and body of water so remarkable.
This podcast made possible with the support of the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation and Media Brew Communications.
I'm Walt Lindala.
And I'm Frida Waara.
Welcome once again to the Lake Superior Podcast. Today, Frida, you set this up to talk a little bit about somebody that has a definite history with Isle Royale out in the Big Lake. What do you got here for us?
Well, you know, boy, oh boy, as soon as you learn that the ranger has made a trip over to the island, everything gets exciting because especially before the bugs arrive, that's when you really want to go to Isle Royale. And my friend Karen has probably set foot more times on that island than anyone else I know. Wow. And she is such a wealth of information because she has been there for she wears so many different hats, I guess.
And that's
bug nets, or should we call them hats?
Bug nets,
Right.
Yeah, I like that. And of course, you're talking about through the course of the season and all of the ins and outs of it. And it's always good to talk to somebody that has a lot of experience with Isle Royale because it is such a very unique space, a unique place, and a unique space of Lake Superior. And here to join us to talk about some of the things with Isle Royale, she is a Moosewatch volunteer coordinator, does a lot of the work at Isle Royale. It's Karen Bacula. Welcome to the Lake Superior Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, let's get into kind of a little bit of background here. This is how we like to start it. And, I guess the question is can you remember your first time to Isle Royale and what connected with you there?
Yes, my first trip stands out very clearly. It was back in 1997. It was 20 years after I'd heard about the island. So I'd had this little piece in my head that one day I was going to make it, and I did. And I guess just what connected me and made me want to just keep coming back was the beauty, the quiet, the simplicity, but yet incredibly complex whole area of what was there, being surrounded by the lake. And many of the people I met were just absolutely wonderful. And I was bit by the bug, and I've been back many times since.
How did you get there the first time? What was your method of getting there?
The Isle Royale Queen 3.
Ah, yes.
Well, it's the shortest route, unless you fly.
Well,
right,
yes.
Right, yeah.
So you hit port, you come into the docks, and there you are, and you step off, and you say you remember a lot of these different things. What struck you? I mean, describe this for somebody that maybe is listening here to this, that's on the other side of the planet, that has no idea even what Lake Superior really truly is. What would you say to them? What was it like?
Crossing the Big Lake was just absolutely amazing to be out there, surrounded by the largest lake by surface area. Was incredibly powerful, and watching the Keweenaw disappear in the distance and then the island eventually start showing up. Just the excitement of being on the island in the lake, landing at the boat dock and kind of being caught up in that rush of gear coming off and hearing the rangers talk and realizing everything I need is on my back right now. And off we go for the next several days. And yeah, it was a very big learning experience. Mistakes were made, but nothing harmful, and those same mistakes were not made in the future.
I love that. Karen, in nearly 3 decades of visiting there, What
Mhm.
what keeps Mike not only coming back, but what do you see as a constant? And then also, there's been so many changes.
Oh, yeah, there have. The constant being just the power of the island, the power of the lake, the serenity, but also realizing that at the drop of a hat, the weather can change. So um, there's predictability and uncertainty in every step that you take. And I like that feeling. I feel comfortable out there. I feel safe out there. There's, the anticipation of what wildlife will I see or not see or hear. Um, what are the views going to be like? So everything is just, it feels brand new every time, even though I can, recognize parts of trails and things like that. There's something special and new about it each time and getting to see the changes. And I think some of the biggest ones are just that there have been more people in the last few years, which has been a pro and a con. It's wonderful to meet some people. I have friends that I met on the island that we continue to stay in contact. And so it's got its own special magic, and it's nothing like heading out to giant mountain ranges or the Grand Canyon where everything is huge and vast. It's right there, and it's accessible, and you get to experience it all.
It really sounds like it's a connection for you to just sort of the peace or whatever you may want to call it, but you seem to find a sort of serenity and a familiarity with it, even though it does change. And that has been the big factor, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it truly is. It's just, again, knowing, I'm heading to this place where there's so much that I recognize, but coming to see the changes, like seeing an old friend, what's new? What's this year going to bring?
Yeah.
Well, and over the course of those years, there have been a lot of new things. And basically, as the volunteer coordinator for Moosewatch, please share with our listeners a little bit about that program, because it is so significant to what the dynamic between the moose and wolves and all the wildlife there on the island.
Yeah, so Moosewatch has been running for well over 30 years. It started as an Earthwatch program and eventually was dropped from Earthwatch, and then has been continuously running. And it supports the 68-year continuous moose and wolf predator-prey study. So basically what the program is people can go to the website, isleroyalewolf.org, and apply for a spot. And we take volunteers out to the island over 4 different weeks throughout the season. We have 2 teams in May, we have a team in June, and then one in early August. And basically the work you do is head out into the backcountry off trail to help collect data for the moose and wolf study. So we're pretty much looking just at moose kind of data, which involves looking for dead moose is what it amounts to, and looking for the condition of the skeleton to see what the moose, age-wise, health-wise was like, potentially how it died, things like that. So, so lots of data collection over 4 weeks' time during the summer.
You mentioned data collection and activities like that. Are there any other sort of special things on the agenda for this particular season?
No, it still stays pretty much the same year after year. We still head out, look for the deceased moose, collect the data, which again, is checking for bones and teeth, the conditions of that, looking for special anomalies like any arthritis, if there have been injuries that healed, just kind of taking a look at, condition of teeth. So it's pretty much the same kind of sets of data. And then we have a lot of experienced returners, and so if there's anything different that anybody notices, we'll grab that information too.
What do you do in the case of a moose carcass remains that you find that maybe is tagged or collared or something, or has some sort of tracking device on it? What is your protocol with that?
So for that we do have some moose out there that do have collars. They've been collared by the research folks, and we'll collect the collars and bring them back. I've had the golden opportunity to do that a couple times.
Karen, how many moose die in a year, would you estimate?
It really varies. prior to 2019, when the wolf population was dropping, when the wolf population was dropping, the moose population was just blasting past, huge numbers. Since 2019, when the wolves were introduced, the numbers of moose have dropped significantly, because right now there are just over 500 moose. Prior and 6-7 years ago, there were closer to 2,000. So there's been quite a drop. And the early drop was a lot of starvation. We would find moose that were starved, and you could tell because they would just be lying there and hadn't been pulled apart by predators. But as of late, there's been more predation. But with that, with fewer moose, the vegetation is happier.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we can get some regeneration of balsam firs and other vegetation.
I've had the opportunity to be around that study area. And if you could just describe to our listeners what that boneyard looks like, because what the sheds, the bones that you collect, they stay often on the island.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple parts to that bone collection. Behind the cabin where the Petersons lived during the summer, there is a display of old antlered skulls, skulls that had been gathered over the years that often show some sort of anomalies or just some real interesting history behind them. So it's amazing. It just kind of takes your breath away to go back there and just see these skulls lined up with big antler sets. And then in the front yard part of things, that's where you would often see the bones that had been collected for that season. And you might run into some skulls, some mandibles, which are jaw bones, and maybe a couple other leg bones, or anything that had just some sort of weird anomaly to it. So maybe some bad arthritis in the vertebrae, things like that. But yeah, people, I've been there when visitors have come up and kind of get startled and are amazed, and lots of wonder and lots of questions come out when people see all those bones.
We're talking with Karen Bacula here today on the Lake Superior podcast. Moosewatch volunteer coordinator, does her work at Isle Royale. We're talking a lot about Isle Royale and some of the educational opportunities. You have built a career as a teacher, and you spread the experience into the classroom, hosting various efforts and things. As you bring these forward and hosting the Isle Royale Educators, what is that program? What happens with that?
So that one is actually officially called Moosewatch for Educators. And so that is pretty much follows the exact same as the Moosewatch trips, but it's kind of a Moosewatch light, whereas the teachers who apply for spots in this week-long workshop will camp in established campgrounds and go out off-trail into the fields to collect data during the day and then come back to our set-up tents at night. So it's a little bit lighter that way. But what's also a part of the educators program, because not only do I have science teachers apply, but I've had, I think, pretty much all curricular areas in grades K through college, is we'll incorporate conversations about plants and general ecology and the other animals and geology and Lake Superior. So it becomes very cross-curricular at all different grade levels. But they all come out with the big excitement being to learn how the study's done and to learn the field techniques for collecting data for this study.
Oh, I love that. That is so good. Anytime you're in the outdoor classroom, it's never wasted. And I'm thinking now, over the years, Karen, you've hosted and guided folks from all over the country. What do you say to prepare them for a visit?
The biggest thing, and I actually get to meet with all the volunteers before they head over, is be ready for some challenges. Two things I tell them to pack that are not necessarily on the gear list is their patience and sense of humor. Because whether you're hiking on the trail or backcountry, it tends to be slower than people think. A lot of folks think, I can cover X number of miles. It's a slower pace, learning to have patience with yourself, with teammates, and just kind of be ready for an amazing experience. It's hard to give them, for them to appreciate what they might experience. So it's kind of the general, make sure you pack what's on the list, be ready with an open mind, and here we go. It's always been a great thing. When I brought high school students out, we had talked a lot about just, the study, the plants, the lichens, those kind of things. So when they headed out, their eyes opened up and off we went.
So I got to ask you, you said, pack what's on the list. What is on the list? What is sort of the recommended stuff, and what is on your list?
Basically, I looked at kind of three categories. Your housing, your shelter, so your tent, your food, and clothing, and then water supply also. Water, I guess, kind of fits in with the food part of things. So a solid tent, you want something lightweight, you want something secure, mostly from rain, and something that's going to hold up over time and that you're familiar with and comfortable with. Making sure that you bring food. You don't want to bring, way too much food. So I tell people, pay close attention a couple weeks or several weeks before the trip, how much you eat, how often you eat during the day, so you can kind of then pace that out for the trip. And then I mentioned throwing some extra snacks, because you'll want to be able to grab something quickly on the trail. Maintaining, your energy level is super important. And clothing, keep it simple. You can wear the same thing over and over. Do not bring cotton clothing, because if that gets wet, it's not going to dry. It can lead you to hypothermia. Maybe if you have a soft cotton shirt you want to put on to sleep for sleeping, great. But if you're getting hot and sweaty or get caught in the rain, that can be miserable. Just kind of think of your basic needs and keep it kind of honed into what you really need. And if you happen to have a space and want to carry a little bit extra, if you have a creature comfort, whether that be a camp chair or that extra fluffy fleece jacket, add that. Because you want to be comfortable and happy. This isn't about suffering. It's about enjoying and enjoying the day, as well as once you finish, and have a nice evening.
But it all has to fit in that pack. And I remember this was back in the early 90s. And Mike Settles and Bob Thompson and my husband Ron, we were over there doing a documentary on the very first time that they had an artist in residence program at Isle Royale. And we were asking if we could even bring a golf cart to haul around this huge bogan tripod that weighed as much as my right leg. And they wouldn't even let us do that. So, making sure the weight and Karen, you are a petite woman. What kind of weight are you carrying on your back now?
It usually goes between 35 and 40 pounds, depending on the length of my trip and what season it is. If it's more the shoulder seasons and it can get chilly out there, I'll have an extra layer or two in there. I think the heaviest pack I've carried, it was pushing close to 60 pounds. That was a few years ago, carrying out some bones and all the extra equipment and things. But I've worked myself beyond that now and have brought myself back down to between 35 and 40. But it can be a trick to packing those things and realizing that you can probably do without some of those extras that you think are necessities. So it's, again, kind of, pack your clothes reasonably, plan on layers. The layers are an important piece. It's like tank top, short sleeve, long sleeve, fleece, and a raincoat. And with that, you get all seasons.
But you never want to skimp when you think about your calories, because you're absolutely right. People that say, I can hike 15 miles a day. And you go, 15 miles at Isle Royale is quite the challenge. And every step you take, there's calories burned there, and you really need to make sure that you're replenishing them. It's not a place that you want to go for a weight loss program, because then you're going to find yourself with just no energy.
Yeah. What are some good rules of thumb? You mentioned about thinking about what you eat and what you're going to need, but energy foods, what do you recommend that they put in the pack?
Grab those candy bars that you don't normally eat at home. Those little fun size bars are great to grab and eat on the trail. And something mix up the sweet and salties, because you'll definitely be sweating. So replacing salt is a good thing. So nuts, salty treats, pretzels, things like that. I know some people absolutely love goldfish because they can pack a big bag and they weigh nothing. I always kind of keep several handfuls of trail mix per day, throw in an energy bar, maybe some energy gels. And each day will be a little different, but I have been with people who did not keep up with their eating. And it was, you've got to help encourage people to pay attention and maintain their self-care to keep up their energy. Because the difference between you can do it and doing it well are two different things.
Karen, have you ever been so tired on the trail that you couldn't eat?
I have felt that at times, or just too hot, and that gets tough. And that's when I encourage people, as part of even drinking water, to have electrolyte mix to add to your water, have some of the kind of the energy chews, because they don't necessarily feel like you're eating big food, but they at least give you a quick boost to kind of clear that fog from your mind, which then tells you, oh, guess what? I am a little hungry. I should eat something now. Mm-hmm. So that's that little bit of have something there. And again, the electrolytes in the water is a great help.
We're talking with Karen Bacula here today. She is Moosewatch volunteer coordinator, does some work on Isle Royale. We're talking about the Isle Royale experience. And, Karen, as we're talking here today, this can sound a little bit daunting. I mean, let's just be honest here. For someone, I'm kind of thinking it from the perspective. I've never been to the island. I know Frida has, and obviously you have, Karen. But I've grown up in the region there, and I know about the Ranger and all the seaplanes and how to get out there, and it's a commitment just to get out to the island. But what do you tell somebody that might be listening right now that goes, boy, this sounds like a challenge. This doesn't sound like fun. Why does anybody do this? Why does anybody do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are so many reasons. And what's interesting with the island, and depending on, what your challenge level is, I think it's really doable for so many people. It does definitely take planning. You do have to put in the forethought of getting out there, getting back, and getting up to the Keweenaw, whatever transportation you're taking over. But, it's if somebody wants to go and explore and spend just a couple of days at the Rock Harbor end of the island, there is a lodge, there are some cabins, so you can go back and take a shower, but you can spend your day out hiking or canoeing or take one of the tours so you can experience the island and not have to carry a pack. There are short routes people can do, there are longer ones. So it can be daunting, but I think if you talk to the right people, it becomes much easier, because I think people don't realize, where to begin with the logistic planning, but once you begin that process, things start kind of falling in place.
And Karen, even for those folks that would be staying at Rock Harbor Lodge, there's a really good chance they will see a moose, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. The moose will hang around that area the last couple years, not in a good way. The wolves have been kind of wandering through as well, but they were being highly discouraged to go away. But, there's plenty of wildlife in the Rock Harbor area. And even there's beautiful trails that you can do day hikes, and you can travel as far or as near as you want. And you will not have a bad experience.
Okay, that bad experience. And I've also heard you use the word safe. Let's just share with our listeners. Karen, have you ever had a moose encounter?
I've had a number of moose encounters. I've had moose right outside my tent. I could hear it ripping the leaves off the tree that was draped over my tent. My son was with me at that point, and I wasn't sure if I should wake him or not, but he woke himself and asked me what that loud noise was, and I said, that's a moose, and his response was, that's loud, and he went back to sleep. So we could hear the moose chewing. I've come up on the trail with a cow and a calf, and the cow was not going to let anybody by because the calf was, whatever it was doing, did not want to cross the trail. So I've had a couple of those up close and personal, but I've also had just a lot of distance viewing, and that's always a beautiful thing. And a lot of people go there just to wait to see the moose, and I never count on it, but when it happens, it's pretty magical.
I have to share, I was with a bunch of outdoor writers one time at Hidden Lake, and we were watching the moose that all came in around sunset. And one of the great writers for Field and Stream magazine sitting next to me said, you know what a moose is? A moose is a perfect example of what God can do with spare parts. And I just always remembered because they are the goofiest looking, but at the same time, they command respect. I mean, they weigh as much as your car or maybe more. I don't know what you're driving, but boy, oh boy, it's really something.
They are large, yeah, but the spare parts is perfect. Yeah, when you look at them from a distance, it's not as noticeable, but up close, yeah, it's definitely what the spare parts are, because they are unique looking.
So how about, you mentioned also the other main wildlife of wolves. Have you had a wolf encounter in your trips on Isle Royale?
I've had a few. The one that first occurred was a number of years ago. I was sitting and talking with someone at one of the campgrounds, and there had been a wolf in the area, and we had seen fresh scat. And at one point during the conversation, this person paused and said, "There's a wolf behind you." And I turned, and there it was, and it went up the trail, which was pretty exciting. That had been my first wolf sighting. I had one come into a campground a couple of years ago. They kind of hung out for a while. I was with a group of teachers. We worked real hard to make it leave, and it finally did. But my biggest both combination moose-wolf experience was camping at the west end of the island one year, and had in the evening had been watching a female moose and her two calves in the water. We were sitting kind of on the shoreline. Went into my tent. It had just gotten dark, and it was September, so bull moose, it's the rutting season. And I heard just this awful noise, kind of a barking, growling, lion roaring sound, and I thought it was maybe a bull moose coming after the female. It turned out to be that there was a pack of 3 wolves that began hunting the cow and her calves, and the sound I heard was actually the female moose. That was her defensive sound to scare off the wolves. But yeah, that all happened in the dark, and I could hear all the action. And by morning, there was nothing. It looked like the wolves had failed, but there was a lot of, you could tell where they had all run around circles and things like that. That was my biggest wow moment.
So
no kidding.
That actually, especially in the darkness of it and just hearing the sounds.
Yeah.
We're talking here with Karen Bacula today. She is a Moosewatch volunteer coordinator, does a lot of the work at the Isle Royale at the park. But I have to ask you about this. All of these stories you're telling, everything, I believe that there's even more, and there are many other things that you could share with them. How can people find out more about the programs you are involved in?
So the best way to find out about Moosewatch and to read about the study and see the annual reports is to go to isleroyalewolf.org. And that's where you'll find all that general information and applications, which usually open up by the end of, they'll open up at some point in December later this year for the 2027 season. And with that, to help fund Moosewatch, because there's, once people collect the data in the field, things need to be processed and such. There's also the wolfmoosefoundation.org that also works to support the study with, the financial support and provides information as to what's going out there as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you talk a lot about summer study. How about winter study? Have you had a chance to take part in that effort?
No, that's one of those dreams many of us have, but no, it's limited to the lead scientists and just a handful of other people.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and I'm sure many of us have asked.
Yeah. Let's hope, fingers crossed, eyes and elbows too, that perhaps with some of the work that's going on at the dormitory down there at Wendigo with making it a little bit more energy efficient and winter study can be a little bit expanded. I'm not sure, but Karen, I'll tell you what, I would give my, well, I can't say right arm because I'm a right-handed writer, but you and I know, boy, oh boy, to have that opportunity to see that island under the blanket of snow would be just so exceptional.
It would be amazing. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I checked out the photos and it's beautiful.
So you've talked to a lot of people. You've spent a lot of time on the island with a lot of people. Is there something that when the people are maybe have been there for the first time and they're packing up and they're ready to go, or that maybe they have been there a few times, is there a common type of thread? Is there a message? Is there something that you hear them say, or an experience or something that resonates in almost all of them?
Yeah, there is a special feeling when you're on the dock waiting for the boat. There's a general relaxed feeling about the people, as well as mixed in there an excitement for what they had just experienced, for whatever their trip happened to be, whether they spotted wolves or moose or heard the loons all night or just had a beautiful time. There's a lot of happiness in the end. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, this has been great. This is wonderful. Now it's time to get back to reality." And I have frequently come back with a comment to that statement is, "This is reality too.
Yes.
It's just a different time schedule."
Yeah.
And so, work to bring some of what you just felt right now with the people you met and living as close to the earth as you can live. Bring some of that back with you and hold on to that. See if you can bring that forward. But it's always a very relaxed ride back with everybody just kind of in their glow of their trip.
The afterglow. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good way to wrap that up there, Karen. You've shared some really great info with us here today, and we appreciate your time. Could you again tell me that how they find out a little bit more about Moosewatch and that, again, the website?
Yeah, so the main one to get for the applications and Moosewatch and to learn details of the study is isleroyalewolf.org. And then to learn how to support the trip, if you're not one that is necessarily ready to head into the backcountry carrying a heavy pack, if you go to the wolfmoosefoundation.org, that will take you to the site where you can help contribute financially. There's items that can be purchased, moose wolf-based items to help support the study. So they work together, those two sites.
Karen, get out there this summer and just bring home some stories, and let's go for a long paddle along the shoreline. And I just really appreciate your sharing with us today and all the work you do to bring Isle Royale to as many classrooms and as many homes as possible.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
It's Karen Bacula, Moosewatch volunteer coordinator, doing work out at Isle Royale. And Frida, that was just a lot of great stories. But I wanted to mention that, like in the course of our conversation, I brought up the fact that it can sound daunting. Going to Isle Royale can be a daunting experience if you're not well-versed in hiking, if you're not well-versed in some of the things that she was talking about to get more into the interior of the island. But Karen touched on the fact that there are options that if you want to take in the experience, but not necessarily make that full commitment, at least the first time. And I think that's important to remember.
Absolutely, Walt. You can go over on the Queen from Copper Harbor just for the day. Mm-hmm. And I would really encourage folks, because it's a long trip across the water and then you don't get much time. We are going to be basically right there at Rock Harbor, and then you're going to be back on the boat again. Mm-hmm. Please give yourself at least an overnight. Yeah. You need to see sunrise from Scoville Point. You need to just have a chance to just kind of find out exactly what Karen's talking about. And it is such an amazing place because you will find that you've stepped back in time. Yeah.
That was a great answer. She said, this is also reality. It's just on a different time frame.
Yes, isn't it? We are made stronger by story. And I'm so appreciative of all the people that have come to share their stories with us on the podcast. Mm-hmm. And we invite folks that have some other subjects that we haven't had a chance to talk to yet to let us know about that, because we love your stories, especially around Lake Superior.
Yeah, we like to hear from you. And if you have ideas, you can find us through the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation. The info will get to us and we'll put it on the list of stuff to talk about. But for right now, that's going to do it for us here on the Lake Superior podcast. I'm Walt Lindala.
And I'm Frida Waara. Thanks for listening. The National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation, NPLSF, is the only official nonprofit 501c3 fundraising partner of the National Park Service for all 5 U.S. national park sites on Lake Superior.
To learn more about NPLSF projects and programs, you can visit the website at nplsf.org or friend them on Facebook.
I'm Frida Waara.
And I'm Walt Lindala. Thanks for listening to the Lake Superior Podcast.
This podcast made possible with the support of the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation and Media Brew Communications.
This episode brought to you by Cafe Imports, Minneapolis-based importers of fine specialty green coffees. Independently owned and operated since 1993, Cafe Imports has been dedicated to decreasing its impact on the earth through renewable energy, carbon neutrality, and by supporting conservational efforts in places where quality coffee is grown and also where quality coffee is consumed. Where does your coffee come from?
And by the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation. As a nonprofit, we rely on support from listeners like you. If you like what you hear, please consider a donation. To learn more and make a gift, visit us at www.gosuperior.org.